In this video, I want to cover how I add movement to vegetation assets. I use this technique all the time and it's working really well, whether it's on small assets or big trees. There are no add-ons needed, it all works with basic modifiers, so let's go. So in the first step, we need to get ourselves a plant vegetation model, any kind. In this case, I have this fern model from Arborea, but like I said, it doesn't matter. You can even do it with a cube, subdivided cube, it doesn't matter, you just need some sort of geometry, right? Make sure that your plant is clean, so like no rotation and strange scales or whatever. Just make everything at row 0, 0, 0, and the origin also should be at 0, 0, 0. This is just the easiest version. So let's gonna create a simple deform modifier. This is our first effect. We're gonna go to bend instead of twist, and we can see we can use this angle to some sort, like simulate, emulate, like wind swing motion type of thing, which is really nice. And we can also choose like the direction that we want. Usually you want, if your camera is looking at this, then this probably makes the most sense. Z I never use basically. Now we're gonna create an empty. I'm just gonna leave the empty, in this case, empty sphere, so we can just see the animation better later. And this also at row 0, 0, 0, that's really important. Let's make it proper and let's call this Anime1 for animation 1. And then inside our simple deform, I'm just gonna hook it up here, like pin it, and then just select the Ani01. And if I go to the empty, and then move it anyhow, you can see that this now affects a simple deform angle based on any translation data from the empty. And in our case, we want to animate rotation, the Z rotation, and we want to animate also the Y rotation. I mean, we can also use Z rotation, but it looks kind of weird. So usually it's only Y and Z rotation to give it this nice wind animation effect. So everything is at 0, 0, 0 again, and we go into the empty. Then we're gonna right click on Y rotation, inset single keyframe, and we do the same for the Z. Now we're going to our graph editor, and then we're going to see we have these two attributes, and then we're going to add modifiers inside the graph editor. And then we're gonna choose noise. So we have a noise now for the Y and the Z. Let's just hide the Z for the Y for a second and just concentrate on the Z. We can see this is now way too fast. So what we're gonna do is we need to scale this bad boy up to something, maybe something like this. It depends on your scene, depends on what kind of speed you want. And then we're going to increase the strength to something like this. I think this works pretty well actually. Like I said, you can fine tune, and then on the Y we're gonna do the same. So we're gonna scale this up and then increase the strength. And I try to make sure that this is like not like completely the same. And you can also use this offset to like I wouldn't recommend this, but maybe try to not have the peaks like together, because we want this to be as random as possible. Let's say. So we want, some sort of this motion, which looks kind of weird and unpredictable, but some sort of wavy, and this is exactly what we want. And then we can see that if we increase the angle, we can increase the strength on how strong the effect is. And like I said, the more random, the better. So we can actually use the same principle and keyframe the angle. And then under the angle, we can also use a noise modifier. And then we're going to also increase it, the scale, just so it looks a little bit better. Now we can see now this is a little bit random, but we can also see that this is a bit too strong. And the reason is that we did our single keyframe when it was like, 60 degree, and want to decrease it. And the easy way to do it inside the modifiers is we're going to use a generator. And this generator, we are going to make everything 0 and put it above the noise, and then with this we can adjust let's say the vertical of our graph, and then we're just gonna make sure that this, like, the peaks are maybe something like this. We can also go to negative, which is also interesting, because then everything sways a little bit more to the other side as well. And then we can decrease the strength here, for example. So the range, it's just not that strong. So now we have something like this, which I think looks pretty nice. Like I said, you can always fine tune everything. This is not like follow exactly these numbers and you get what you want. I just want you guys to understand the thought process, and you can easily create your own setup exactly how you want in your project. But the main effect is for sure the displacement, the second modifier, the displacement modifier. And we can, if we turn this on, we can see that now we have these very wavy, small leaf type of animation. This is what really makes the effect shine, but the simple deform is still important in my opinion, because this is the overall shape of the whole plant is changing, and the second modifier is more for the small details, and together we have a really, really nice effect. So let's see how we can make the displacement modifier. So let's create a displace modifier, and we can see this looks absolutely terrible. So the first thing we need to fix is we need to get a texture. So let's press new texture. Then we can press this button so we can jump into the texture. Now I'm gonna change this texture type into clouds. That's gonna help us tremendously already. And we can see that with the size, we can some sort of control the wobbliness of everything. I like to change from grayscale to color. This also makes a huge difference. And like I said, we're gonna need to first, let's establish some sort of size that kind of makes sense. So if we make this size super small, then we can see that we have way too fine movement details. And if we make it maybe too big, let's say we can make it up to 10 or something, then we're gonna not even see any movement type at all. So it depends on the plant. In this case, probably maybe 2 or something. Something like looks like something like this. Let's go back to the modifier. Now we're going to change this to object because we're going to need something later. Then we're going to change this to RGB to X, Y, and Z. I don't know why, but it just works. I mean, I actually know why, because we just did that into color and then now, okay, it doesn't matter. It just looks good like this. And then with the strength, we can control the strength of the effect, obviously. Now we need a new empty. So we did the any01. We're going to need another empty. Let's just create another one. And I call this any02, just so we do not confuse the both. I'm gonna select the any02 in our object, and then in the displacement modifier. And then if we rotate this, we can see, okay, we can affect the plant. Now this looks absolutely shit, don't worry, it's just a numbers game. So we are going to, first of all, go back into the texture. So in the texture tab, we are going to decrease the size. The 2 was not correct. We need maybe something like 1, something like this. And then we're going to back into the modifiers, and then we need to decrease the strength. This is way too high. So we maybe something like 0.3, and then we can see this is already much better. So let's just hide the simple deform so we can see what we're doing, and we can see we're doing nothing at the moment. I'm sorry. We need to actually move this, and then we can see, okay, now we're talking. This is going very well. Now this looks exactly like we want, so we just need to keyframe it. We can also use a single keyframe on the Z rotation. In this case, I only want 1 dimension. This is completely enough for me. You can also use this, and you can expand this effect as how much you want. I just try to keep it a little bit of simple because at one point it doesn't quite matter. Just gonna waste the time a little bit. This is gonna create a generator because we want it to be continuously rotating. So we're gonna just decrease this one, and this way we can navigate how fast this moves in a, let's say, graphical way. You can also use hashtag frame if you want. It's kind of the same. You can also keyframe it from A to B, but it's kind of stupid because this way you never need to guess your time range from your for your project. So let's maybe make 0.2 or something. I think this looks pretty nice. Maybe decrease the strength even more to maybe to 0.1. Yeah, this looks a little bit more realistic, a bit more mature. And the last step, actually, we're pretty close. The last step is to actually use vertex weight paint. And this is actually pretty nice because we can see that at the moment everything moves here, right? But technically it doesn't make sense because everything moves the same. It's like this stem has the same influence as, let's say, the tip of this leaf, which isn't quite realistic, right? So if we use weight painting, then we can influence. For example, we can see here's no motion, and at the tip we have a lot of motion, and at the root of our plant there's less motion. The stem has no motion, so this looks much more realistic. We can then maybe increase the scale a bit more again, let's say, and now this whole effect is just maturing so much. And we can see that if we go into weight paint mode, then we can see we have these weights that are, let's say, it just makes sense. They're logical, right? So blue is no influence, red a lot of influence. Now, do you think I weight paint everything manually? Hell no. There's a nice trick. Let me show you. So what we need to do is, let's get to data. So this is the one I'm using at the moment, the vertex group. We're gonna create a new vertex group. Let's go into edit mode. And now we basically only want the leaves. So we're gonna go into the material. Most of the time when you have vegetation asset, you probably will have a stem material and a leaf material, like 99% of the time. If you have not, then unfortunately you somehow need to maybe select everything with L if you don't have too much, or I don't know. But anyway, you need the leaf material, and then you can press select the leaf material. Now you have only the leaves. Go back to data, and then we can assign this into the group, and we're just gonna call it, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it as group, I don't care now. Let's get to weight paint, and we can see now everything is red, so full influence. Now we want this nice transition, so how do we do this? Now we go to edit mode, and we're gonna choose only the stem material this time, so everything this. Now Shift D to duplicate in place, just press left mouse button so it's just in the same place, and then P, and then separate by selection. So now we have the original plant and we have only the stem. Now here's the magic. Let's go back to the original plant, go to the modifiers, and now we're gonna look for a proximity, vertex weight proximity. Now this is a 5-head move because now we're gonna choose the group, the new vertex group, and we're gonna choose the target of the second one, of only the thing you do not want, basically. And now we're gonna go into weight paint mode, and then we're gonna change this into geometry, and then boom, we can see now if we adjust the numbers, we can see now we have the weight paint in proximity to the object, to the things that we do not want. And I think that's quite genius. Big shout outs to Sweeper 3D who showed me this trick. It's all integrated in Arboria, the vegetation add-on I use all the time, with built-in animation. By the way, if you're interested in buying Arboria, I have a affiliate link, and I would really appreciate it. I can highly recommend it. Okay, now we have this weight, so now we actually need to apply the proximity modifier, because then in our group we really have everything baked in perfect. Let's go back into the displace modifier, actually turn on the simple deform, and we can see now that everything's looking nice. And then in the end we just need to, branches and leaves is the same as this, so you won't see a big difference. We can of course delete the stem thing. We don't need it anymore. We applied the modifier. Now we have basically the effect ready to go. So we have one object always, 2 empties, and we have 2 modifiers. That's about it. Now if I have other vegetation assets, do I need to do the whole thing over and over again? No, usually what I'm doing is, let's say I have a different type of, let's say this grass, for example. Usually I have, so let's delete everything. I can show you. We can delete everything. So we have the grass, and I want the same thing. So I'm gonna select the grass, then Control select the thing I want to copy it from, and then Control Z, and then we're gonna copy the modifiers. Nice. So now we have the modifiers copied. By the way, this is copy attributes. I think this is an extension you need to turn on. It's not by default, but it's, you know, it's free. Just saying, copy attributes. And as you can see now, the grass also has the same effect. If we copy the same effect with the same attributes to a tree, let's say, so a much bigger model, we can see that maybe that we'd like to adjust the texture a little bit, because we can see that maybe this is a little bit too fine for the leaves, or let's say you just want more control. You can always come here, and we have the texture 004. We can always come to the shader, the texture tab, and then we can create a new texture. And then we can increase the size, maybe to something like 2, or maybe like 5, so we can just see a little bit more better. Then we can see that the whole effect is just a little bit bigger scaled, let's say. And then this helps, for example, maybe with some bigger assets like trees, for example. What I'm trying to say is you can adjust the textures and whatever, but it's relatively simple. It's just one texture you need to change, and you can maybe then say, okay, this is then maybe called big, so everything that is as big as this model has similar scale, let's say. You do not need to make this again and this and this and this again. That's what I'm trying to say. Now the effect is finished, and I just want to spend a little bit more time explaining how I actually use it in a real project. Because you probably want to use more than one vegetation asset in your scene. Now what you do not want to do is you do not want to Shift D and then you have 2 leaves or something, because everything is like dependent on the position of the zero, of the empty and whatever. And also the performance will be absolutely atrocious, because every time you duplicate a new object, you have to calculate your new modifiers. So what we need are collection instances, because we have our vegetation in a collection, and we can press right click and then instance to scene to create a collection instance of our collection, basically. Now this I can then duplicate how much I want to create a whole scene. Now they all have the same animation, and unfortunately with this technique you cannot have like individual animation for each single object. So usually if you change the scale, you know, position it like smartly, change the rotation, sometimes even maybe go into the negative, it is not like super visible that they all have the same, the same animation. So this is usually like you wouldn't scatter them anyway, like one by one, because they are the same asset anyway, right? So if you scatter them, let's say properly with geoscatter, whatever, then they won't be, let's say, seen as like with the same animation. Now this is not super high realistic everything, right? This is just a small little trick that I use so that the vegetation is just not like super boring. I think it adds a lot to the scene, because with everything it moves just a little bit, it just gives this some sort of, oh wow, he even animated the plants and animation, right? And most importantly, it is not realistic, but at the same time, because we only use like few modifiers, it is extremely performative. Like we can see it's still like I don't know, copy until my finger breaks, and my FPS is most of the time steady. Now this highly depends on obviously your graphic cards and whatever, and also on your vegetation asset. For small asset like fern, for example, most of the time this is not a huge issue. If you have big trees, then usually sometimes you do have some FPS drops in your viewport, but you can always come here and then just hide it and then animate, and then at the end, you know, unhide it only for the render. So that's about the video. I hope you found it useful. If you have questions, leave it down below. See you next time. Bye bye.